Boom, we're on. Great. Hi, everybody there in Facebook land, and welcome to you guys who are here live. This is great. This class, guys, that we're going to do tonight actually is one of those that I actually thought of doing when we first started to go to workshops on a weekly basis. One of the first ones that actually came to mind was this one here because it's really important. If you know anything about October, it's actually Breast Cancer Awareness Month, as you know. And so you're going to hear a lot of things thrown around about early detection, care for things like this. And that's all important. It certainly is. But if I could actually show you ways to actually prevent it naturally, right? Would that be something you'd be interested in? Would that be good? I think so, right? I mean, these usually what we find about things that are natural is they work with your body as opposed to having lots of side effects. Number two is that they cost far less. And number three, they give you such a higher level of function than things that actually that are more, shall we say, surgical or medicinal. Now that we don't need those things. So this is going to get you on the prevention of things. Like they always say the ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. In this case, I'll say probably an ounce is worth like a ton of cure. Okay, right? Because there's so much that goes into this whole thing too. So this actually was borrowed very heavily from a nice top 10 list that I found in a journal, and I really like this one here too. So the motivation behind this talk is that the public health demands this. Breast cancer, in terms of the instances that happens in people, has actually gone up. Now, there's less people dying from it, thankfully, because we're probably catching it earlier. In fact, you might say that some of this statistic might actually be because we are catching it earlier. We're catching it before people used to find out later in the later stages, which is the case in my own family. Number two, my occupation demands it. To be a doctor means that you are a teacher first and foremost. You teach your patients about how their body's supposed to work, how to care for it better and get the best results from it. And it also means providing care as we need to. And then lastly, my family experience brings this too. I actually lost my mom when I was 16 years old to breast cancer. I've also lost two aunts to it as well too. And so when I see what kind of toll it takes on the person themselves who's receiving the care and in the family that most directly impacts, I want to see you guys avoid that kind of pain if I can, because it's so important to families, I think, unity and family health to avoid those things too. So the Journal of National Cancer Institute actually said this, that when they look at the meta-analysis of all the research that's been done on breast cancer to this point, they say that family history actually plays a role in about 20 to 25% of cases that people actually have it. And the question they have to ask at this point is it genetic or is it social environmental? I actually had a doctor tell me recently that one type of cancer, where actually he says it's not inherited, but it's genetic. So you think about it and say, what does that mean? Well, they're talking about epigenetics. It's basically saying the genes that you have, how you care for them. If you have a cancer gene that turns on because of how you lived your life, that's something you actually have control over. You didn't inherit that per se, but you inherited the behaviors that may have caused it. Okay. Number two is that full-time pregnancy, carrying a full-term pregnancy with breastfeeding under age 30 can also reduce your risk of breast cancer between 25 and 30%. That means that the remaining 50% of cases are actually from faulty nutrition, insufficient exercise, excess body fat, or things like this. And these are things we want to talk about, how to make sure we can actually help you guys control the factors that you can. Don't worry about the things that you can't. Be aware of what they are. Be tested if you need to. But let's make sure we take care of things that we actually have. We can talk about this. This is the circle of concern, but this is the circle of influence, the things you can most impact and direct there too. Okay? So rule number one is you want to try to avoid diets that are high in saturated fats, especially from animal foods. Now, these saturated fats are better than actually trans fats. Trans fats are actually ones that are totally foreign to your body. They're completely man-made. However, when you actually eat things that are high in these things that are high in saturated animal fats, one thing they produce is something called arachidonic acid, which actually is an inflammatory molecule. Pretty much everything that goes wrong with inflammation starts with that molecule. The higher your concentration of that in your tissues it is, even just doing basic exercise makes you feel very sore. And processes that would normally be relatively small become much more long-lasting and deleterious to your body. Breast tissue takes this arachidonic acid and makes many hormones that cause breast cells to divide too quickly, which do you guys know about the thing about the study they did with hormone replacement therapy for estrogen with women years ago, why they had to stop it? Do you remember hearing about that? So they were doing this thing where they were trying to help women prevent osteoporosis. So after they went through menopause, they actually gave them estrogen that is to replace what your body was no longer producing as much of. And they said, wow, even if it's preventing them keeping their bones healthy, it was actually causing women to develop breast cancer at such a high rate they actually stopped the study early. They said we can't ethically take the study to completion because so many women are actually getting breast cancer on that drug. Okay, so instead of eating things that are high in arachidonic acid, like when you think of like arachidonic acid, think of like really marbly meat. You go to the grocery store and you see a T-bone steak where they've been feeding that animal corn. has a huge layer of fat around it. That's going to become arachidonic acid in your body. Instead, eat things that are lean like Cornish hen, fish, peas and beans, egg whites, non-fat yogurt, skim or 1% milk, things like this. Those things are actually good for us. I'm not saying don't have fat. I'm just saying eat the right kind of fat. Arachidonic acid, fat from saturated fat is a tough one on you. So here's the two choices of meat, okay? If you know this about it, which one is the healthier choice? That is correct. That's actually venison. That's venison, yeah. Now, here's the thing. People say, I like the taste of this one. It's got the sizzle, right? Things that too. What you can do is you can actually marinate this stuff and things, or you can serve it with certain types of things on there, such as grass-fed butter, or certain oils you would want to cook in, like say olive oil or things like that too, but you can put those on there if you want to. And they'll give that nicely thing too, but just don't cook those things too. By the way, almost every slide I show you, the answer will be B, okay? A and B, once you think of these things through. So we're making it easy for you. So when you go through the grocery store, think, I don't want to inflame my body. There's we go. And also this thing would also include, oh, actually, I'll just skip that for now. Number 2 is stay lean. After menopause, overweight women have a 3 times increase in breast cancer versus women who maintain their ideal body weight. And what they say is that body fat serves like an extra ovary. When your ovaries are in overdrive, you're producing hormones that make your body, at least in high levels, that make you more susceptible to breast cancer. The more body fat you have, you produce something called estrone, which is a very potent form of estrogen, and it causes breast cells to replicate very fast. Estrone can convert into estradiol when you have breast cancer, which is even more potent. And those cancer cells now form masses and metastasize. So they therefore maintain your ideal body weight. Now look at this picture, guys. This is a woman 200 pounds later after she did some really cool things for her health. Who's less likely to get breast cancer? The one left or the one on the right? The one on the right, right? She just had an extra ovary sitting there in her waistline. Isn't that amazing? This is probably 2 extra ovaries, in fact, when there it is, okay? Number 3, do some type of endurance exercise a minimum of 30 minutes 5 times a week. If you look at the literature on pretty much any type of exercise that benefits you for something such as, say, fighting depression or preventing cardiovascular disease or developing new brain tissue, all sorts of cool things like that. This is kind of the minimum they recommend to you. 30 minutes a week, 30 minutes a day, 5 times a week. When you have active women, they actually have less breast cancer. They actually burn fat, which makes their fat cells smaller, so they actually have less estrone there. What they also say is that when you are exercising aerobically, you move circulation through your liver faster, and if you know your liver, it's a great detoxifier. So any type of excess estrogen or bad forms of estrogen that you have gets processed out, and that keeps your female hormones in balance and regulates the cell replication so you don't get out of control. What I would encourage you to do for this one is find 2 or 3 forms of aerobic exercise that you like and then do them. Doing the same one over and over again almost guarantees what? When you do the same thing over again, what's likely to happen? When you just repetitively do something over, do you get bored? Yeah, some people say, I just get bored doing the same exercise all the time. So don't do the treadmill all the time. Do something else. Number 2 is, if you do the same thing over and again, are you more likely to get injured? Would that make sense? Right? Different tendinitises or irritations and so forth. So I just tell people, look, hey, if you like biking, then take up walking as well too, or add some swimming in there too. Do some rowing, whatever it may be. But do some form of thing that gets your heart rate up and keeps it elevated for at least 30 minutes. Okay? So again, we look at people who are, sofa speds over here, sedentary versus active. Who's at lower risk? B. Once again, right? B is the answer. There you go. Number 4, take a high-potency multivitamin with some type of vitamin E and also vitamin D as well too. What we know about these 2 vitamins is they actually kind of serve like a hormone in a way. But vitamin E has some very strong anti-cancer properties. It actually causes these receptors to actually that actually kill the breast cancer cells as they form. And vitamin D actually slows the rate of breast cell replication, like those other things we mentioned before. That's good, and encourages cells to become fully mature. If you can elevate your vitamin D levels to be above 85 nanomoles per liter, that's what they actually measure in. That's a good thing. Here's some good forms of it. Vitamin E succinate and vitamin D3 is the best form there too. Taking 400 international units of those things will get you there. Okay? So, once again, which diet probably promotes more of this? Okay? This, how much vitamin E and D do you expect to see in French fries and burgers? Not much, right? This would be a great one, wouldn't it? Right? Those are also, the vitamin E is actually found in a lot of grain oils, and vitamin D is actually found in fish and things like that, and milk if it's been fortified. Juice Plus is a great way to get this. If you don't eat 9 to 13 fruits and vegetables per day, which 98% of you don't, okay, I'm included in that. I don't get 9 to 13. I get 5 to 7 typically. Okay, there's no better way to actually supplement those things than actually taking Juice Plus. This is actually equivalent of about 5 to 7 fruits and vegetables right there. Or you can juice as well too. There's great ways to juice there. It's not cheap, and it creates a bit of a mess. You got to clean that thing up every time you do it. Some leave the pulp in, some have fiber in there too. So whatever you do, find those forms of things that you can eat that are plant-based, that actually help you get those things in there too. All right, number 5, reduce your alcohol consumption. And along with it, take a vitamin B supplement, because alcohol, actually, when they say if a person actually, especially a woman, well, this would be a woman, of course, drinks more than one alcoholic drink per day, she has twice the risk of breast cancer. Alcohol encourages creating something called free radicals. These are not the people in the 60s that they said, walk around, make love, not war. These are actually molecules that steal electrons from other ones. They go around and actually rob cells of things and create these things that cause cellular damage. They cause genetic mutations, and the National Cancer Institute has said that ethanol actually drinks second only to smoking for environmental forms of cancer. So the things you can change that would reduce risk of cancer, quitting smoking is number 1, but quitting drinking or at least severely curtailing your drinking is the second best thing you can do for yourself. Alcohol also depletes your body of vitamin B9, which is needed for DNA to replace itself during replication. If you have low vitamin B9 levels, you actually cause DNAs to be fragile, and that causes cancer too. So drink no more than 1 drink per day and take a B complex supplement to counteract the effects there too. So again, there's not much I can say that it really is a positive health benefit for alcohol, right? Sometimes we say, well, hey, wine actually has the dark things there too. That's good, but you can also get that from grape juice too. Okay, so I'm not saying being a total teetotaler, but I would definitely say do not drink more than 1 drink per day, which I still think is quite a bit. That's a pretty strong drinking schedule there too. So once again, which is a better thing to drink, this or that? Hands for water. Water's a good choice. There you go, bingo. Number 6, take fish, flax, and borage oil, either in the food or in capsules, and try to eat fish twice a week. What happens is omega-3s make a hormone that once again slows the rate of breast cell replication. Omega-6s actually can block unhealthy hormones from it's a certain type of fat that comes from the arachidonic acid. The best thing to do would be reduce your intake of animal fats for foods, and then have 2 to 3 servings of cold water fish per week. So this is gonna be like your salmon, not things that were farm raised, shall we say, tilapia and things like that. Yes, John.
What is borage oil?
Borage oil is actually from a borage plant, John, I believe, and it's something you can get. It's a supplement. I don't think you want to eat the seed by itself, but they expel or press it. It's a form of oil that's really good for those things. I don't personally take it.
The plant tastes gross.
Yeah, right, exactly. Which is why they want you to get the oil and you put it in a capsule where you can tolerate it. Okay, and so supplement by actually taking at least 400 milligrams of fish, flax, and borage oil every day. I think 2 to 3 times a day for optimal effects. Personally, I take about 4,000 milligrams of fish oil per day, because I've just seen too much about the literature that says that at those levels you're going to help your brain, you're going to deflame your body, reduce risk of heart attack, etc. I just actually had a cardiac test recently, and they said my arteries look like the day I was born. There's nothing in there. I'm going to be 57 this year, which I think is pretty cool. I credit a lot of that to the fact that I take omega-3s for that. Okay, so once again, which oils are better? Crisco. This is totally trans fat, man-made. No, good job saying no. How about this? Yes, right here on the shelf. You can actually walk home with some tonight. There it is. It's actually one of the most pure ones on the market from Innate Choice. There's one version that actually has vitamins A and D in it, which is great for the winter months. And there's actually the one over here, which actually is one that you can take in the summer when you don't need as much, and you're getting some maybe from the sun there too. All right. Number 7, consume cruciferous vegetables and indole 3 carbanols daily. Now, these are things that actually typically most kids turn their nose up at when they're younger because they're kind of bitter tasting, right? Brussels sprouts, broccoli, things like this. Kids are like, ooh, Mom, it's gross, right? So you have to season it and dip it in cheese sauce and things like that. But these things should contain compounds. One of those is indole 3 carbinol that helps you detoxify cancer-causing agents, particularly in the liver again. It converts estrogen to a safer form. Ideally, you should have at least 1 of those servings per day, okay, of those things. If you can get 2, even better. So one of my favorite ones actually is cabbage. I actually like that a lot. But cauliflower, you ever hear make cauliflower mashed potatoes for Thanksgiving? It's a good one. Way lower carb and way better for you. I'm saying don't have the potatoes, but it's good stuff, all right? And this actually helps, along with milk thistle, support your liver and immune function. They would keep your cancer at bay there too. So once again, what's 1 to 3 servings of which? This kind of colorful or this kind of colorful? There you go. That's right. This is colorful, but the wrong kind. All artificial. That's the one you want. Okay? You guys are really smart. It's good. Okay? Now, number 8 is supplement with curcumin and other natural anti-inflammatory agents. So they say approximately 40% of breast cancer that happens, it occurs in certain types of receptors that are genetically driven. So they're called ERB receptors. These actually send messages to breast cells to have ongoing cell replication. They saw that there was a way they could block those things from working, but using this drug called herceptin, but it has some pretty nasty side effects, and it cannot be used in a preventative way. It can only be used when the person actually has breast cancer. What they've seen is The spice, curcumin from the spice turmeric, actually blocks the same receptor with no side effects. It even helps benefit preventing colon cancer as well too. And so a good supplement would include curcumin, white willow extract, boswellia, and ginger. These are all 4 natural agents that are synergistically block the conversion of arachidonic acid into bad meaty hormones. You can do that with certain foods. You can also get it in this thing right here, which I take twice a day myself. This actually is a really cool anti-inflammatory compound. All those things I just mentioned are in this formula. Anti-inflammatory, helps your joints feel better. It'll help you deflame your body, and it has these anti-cancer effects too. So again, we could actually eat this one. You guys, this really, either one of these answers is okay. This actually is Indian food, which has all those things. If you like Indian food, it's got some kick to it. Curcumin, ginger, turmeric, those are in those foods. But also, there's what I just showed you, Proens right here. This is the stuff. Okay. Number 9. You have 2 tablespoons of ground flax seeds every day. Now, if I'm not right, Stacey, doesn't your mom like flax seeds? Am I thinking of the right person?
I get Anthony flaxseed every week.
Yeah, there you go. It's pretty tough to do, but you can blend it in smoothies. That's a great way to have it. It actually breaks the shell. It's great stuff. It thickens it. Oh yeah, absolutely. There are these 2 androlactone and estradiol that are 2 phytoestrogens that inhibit enzymes which block the bad forms of estrogen and actually make the right kind of cells replicate. They decrease those receptors that actually make the cancer more likely. They also help prevent fibrocystic breast disease. So ground flax, 800 times more building blocks for these things than any other food source. That's why you take this one, because you can get it from other sources, but if something was 800 times better, would that be a good choice? I think it would be, right? And so you have 2 tablespoons per day in ground flax mixed with your cereal, yogurt, like Stacey said, juice, and even in your protein shakes.
Can you stick it in your muffins, or is it like kill something in the oven?
You know, I think, Stacey, at lower cooking temperatures, you should be fine. Okay? I think you'd be just fine. Okay? Yes. So here you go. You get to choose. Here's ground flax, or not ground flax seeds, there they are. There's also a form that has flaxseed oil. If you wanted us to get this for you, I do not have it in stock right now, but we can get that for you as well, too. It is a form of oil that also is anti-inflammatory. The only thing is that it has to go through more steps than the actual omega-3s do to get there. But this has a very specific compound in it to actually help your body stay healthy that way and block those things. All right, number 10, have 1 serving of a soy food. Now, this one I have to use a little bit of caution on this one because most commercially raised soy has had a lot of things sprayed on it. And if it has not been processed or in some cases like fermented, it does contain some compounds that can be a little tough on both women and men. But these contain phytoestrogens that have anti-cancer properties. They help reduce cells from dividing too fast, and they actually stimulate the good forms of estrogen. A 200 milligram soy isoflavonoid actually, when given to people, helps shrink their tumors in one study. And ideally, have 1 generous serving of a soy food that has been fermented, ones which are the best to avoid having thyroid problems. Joe Mercola at Mercola.com actually lists those. So that's miso, tempeh, and there's one other one I'm forgetting right now. But they're the forms of soy that they have fermented, and it takes the ones that are the negative properties of soy out of it. So you have only the good ones left over there too. So here's some tempeh and miso. It's actually what that looks like. There's the thing there too. It's also actually in the form of the complete shakes that Juice Plus makes. They actually have organic soy in there, and it's really good stuff. It's a very smooth protein. I like it. It's not harsh on the body at all. It's a very good one there too. So that's one way to get it in a packet. We actually have both vanilla and chocolate. Okay, if you'd like a sample of those, ask us for one. We'll give you some before you leave home today. Okay? All right, so how do you implement these rules? Well, what you want to do is, who's ever heard of the SMART method? What is it? Do you know what it is, Eva?
No.
Okay. S is specific. Okay? It's one thing to say, I'm going to eat better. How specific is that? Right? They say the target is so big you could never hit it or always hit it every time. Okay? It has to be measurable, right? Like I'm going to take 2 fish oil capsules per day. It has to be attainable, meaning something you can actually realistically do. The next one is realistic, and then it has to be time-based. Now, I don't recommend you take all these into consideration and change them all the first day. Who could do that? Who can make 10 changes at one time? That's very hard. But you can say, by the end of this week, I'll actually have a fantastic fish oil supplement. I'll be taking 1 in the morning and 1 at night, or 2 in the morning, 2 at night, and then once that one's done, to go to the next one then. I will make sure that now I find a good source of animal-based foods I'm going to be eating with as little saturated fat on them as possible. If you were interested in getting something like that in terms of like ground beef and stuff, we actually know some farmers in our area who actually raise their animals in a very humane way, and they have very low levels of arachidonic acid because they're grass-fed. Great stuff.
Specific, measurable,
Attainable, realistic, and time-based, right? If you say, I'm going to get up at 3 a.m. and go for a run every day to exercise, probably not going to happen, right? But if you say after work every night when I get off to blow off some stress and kind of get the yayas out, I'm going to go for a walk. That's fantastic. You can actually do that sort of thing. But it has to be time-based. You get that one down. Remember, it takes about 3 to 6 weeks to make a habit in most cases. Most nutritional ones don't have to be that hard. Honestly, if you're adding a supplement in, how hard is that? You just have to remember to take it, right? You can change that habit in a week, right? Okay? So, but once that one's on there, then implement the next one and the next. And the more good habits you actually add, the healthier you become. There's something called the snowball effect. What does a snowball do when it tumbles down the mountain? It adds what? Size, weight, mass, and speed, right? Yeah. Mass is a better way to put it. That's good. You must be taking physics now. That's fantastic. Yeah. So if that happens, right, the snowball, just because it's gaining traction, in the same way, one good habit change in your life can actually start to have effects on other things. Sometimes it's not even your physique. It might actually have to do with your personal discipline or your spiritual habits or your relationships in your family. There's so many ways that making one positive change spills over to other ones too, okay? How can we help you? One is through lifestyle coaching. We actually, guys, will help you implement these steps realistically. One reason that we have about 3 or 4 times throughout our day where we block out 15 minutes to meet with people is to help you specifically on these things. This class gives you kind of the flyby overview of what you need to do to help you actually make it real in your life. I may need to help you. You might say, well, Dr. Land, what form of fish oil should I take? Or where can I get good flax seeds? We're going to talk about those things, right? Number 2, come to some of our other classes on upcoming things. Like we actually have classes that are on how to make a habit, how to make things change. Who's been to my class on the 5-second rule? Okay. Yep. Okay. These guys have been there. So it's a real simple thing you do that when you have this urge to do something healthy for yourself, you literally give yourself a countdown to blast off. Because if you don't do it within 5 seconds, you probably won't take action on it. Cool stuff like that. So it's a synergistic class with this. We're telling you what to do, how to get it done is maybe something that you learn in another class. Number 3, consult us for other high quality supplements, guys. We happen to have, through our office, the ability to get things for you that actually I think are some of the best ones on the planet. They're ones that are typically sold only to professionals. They're extremely high grade. For example, I mentioned fish oil. You can buy a lot more fish oil for this than this in a big old tub. The problem is, I'm going to ask you is, where did they catch it? What kind of fish do they catch? Sometimes they catch ones that are raised in some pretty bad conditions. Number 2 is, how do they harvest it? Sometimes they'll take these ones and they'll press them 2 or 3 times, and the last pressing they get is from their scales and their eyeballs and their skin. Not very good quality stuff, like from the flesh. Number 3, did they make sure that all the mercury's out of it? Okay, so a lot of these fish that are growing in these oceans actually have mercury. That's not a good thing to have in there. Or PCBs, which are actually a plastic type thing or an oil-based thing. Not so good. The last question I would ask is, did they preserve it properly? These ones here, they actually put things in that keep it from going rancid. Who's ever actually had a fish oil capsule and felt the burps afterwards, or like a bitter taste afterwards? Yeah, you don't want to have that, okay? That's a classic sign of either that's toxic or it actually has gone rancid. Well, this one here actually has it in it, so it doesn't happen. And then we're going to coach you on some other things too. Like, for example, fish oil, if it's actually in a fish in the cold waters of the ocean, it actually is going to be flowing more slowly, right? So we actually have people store their fish oil either in their freezer or their fridge. When you take it, you want to sandwich it and actually eat a little bit of food, then take your fish oil and actually have that on top of it and then eat some more food on top of it. So when it dissolves, you don't get those kind of fishy tastes if that bothers you, okay? If you still have your gallbladder but it's not working very well, that can be a problem too, right? We'll walk you through those things. Number 4, ideal protein. If you actually want to work on losing weight, there's a couple different plans we have. Not in office, but I have some friends who do this. Ideal protein is a very safe, sane way to actually lose weight. And of course, your chiropractic care. We've been handing this little thing out all this week to remind people, look, your brain, your spinal cord, your nerves control all those things, okay, including breast tissue. There's actually neurology to breast tissue. And if your nerves are working better to your immune system and all those tissues, you have a far less chance of developing disease. When people actually had misalignments that were going uncorrected, this study that was done on the autopsies, it's called the Windsor autopsies, they showed that subluxations really do kill over time. They cause tissues to actually become less healthy and problematic. And so that's why I want to make sure that you stay on some type of wellness program, keeping your spine and nervous system as lined and as mobile and functional and strong as possible for optimum vitality. Does that mean that chiropractors are treating cancer? Are we treating cancer or whatever? No. But are we building your body in a better way to actually be able to fight the rigors of life? Absolutely, right? When your immune system is strong, you're more able to fight all the abnormal cells you get there too. So our supplements, like we said, they're not found in stores. They're only sold in professionals. Their quality is the best sources they can get. The formulations they put are the best possible combinations, and the price, they're very seldom the cheapest. I have people say, well, doc, I can get that cheaper down in the store. But my question again, what's the quality going to be? If you're only absorbing, do you know that some forms of calcium stored in nutrition stores, you can only absorb about 10% of it? Whereas the ones we have here, you can absorb about 70%. So that that form of calcium better be about 7 times less costly to be worth it, right?
Like,
What?
you want to drink water out of the back of the toilet or out of the bottle?
Yeah, there you go.
Water.
They're both wet, right? Yes. Yeah. I think the one out of the toilet would be my choice number 2 for obvious reasons. There you go. Sorry. There you go. All right. And so, but again, you get a lot more for the punch, and you can pay too much for them too. Now, this is some interesting stuff on chiropractic care and cancer. Again, it's not a treatment or a cure for any symptom or condition. What chiropractic does is it detects and removes subluxations from the spine, which takes nerve interference down so that your brain can actually control your body better. But chiropractic care has been shown to actually have a positive benefit on many diverse conditions and health parameters. For example, this is what we know about the body. Cancer is actually always there. But so is your protection. Every day they estimate that your body produces approximately between 5 and 10,000 cancer cells from the normal processes of living. Kind of scary, right? Like oxidation, thing too. But in most cases, if your immune system is strong and your body's working well, the white blood cells and killer cells you have say, hey, that cell's getting out of control, and it goes over and does something just like this. That's a killer cell attacking a cancer cell. Isn't that cool? There's these little things in there, boom, it goes in there and kills it. Fantastic. Okay? If your immune system is strong, all those cells are destroyed and you have a clean slate every day. How does chiropractic care influence cancer? Well, number one is they've actually shown the field of psychoneuroimmunology, which means that your mental state, your nerves, and your immune function all work together. The first one is JMPT 1990. They did a study where they took people and they said, we want to see if getting adjusted actually influences how your immune system works. How well does it work? They examined all these people who were actually chiropractic newbies. These people had never had chiropractic care in the past. They checked them for subluxations in their thoracic spine, which is the ones that have ribs attached, right? T1 to T12. If they found people actually had subluxations, they did 3 things to them. One group they put into control, actually 4, take that back. One group went into a control group, so nothing was done. Number 2, they did some massage, some soft tissue work. Number 3, they came in and made the table bounce up and down. Okay, no care, just made the table move. The last group actually had their spines corrected with an adjustment. And before they did the procedure and afterwards, they actually drew their blood. The people actually had the chiropractic care had an improvement of white blood cell activity as much as 30% within 30 minutes. How cool is that, right? This is what we typically see is people come in and say, Doc, I feel like I'm getting a cold. We adjust them. Their fever spikes for a little bit. They have a massive discharge, and lo and behold, they're over it. How cool is that, right? Number 2, Joe Felicia was actually one of our chiropractic pioneers. I believe I think he just passed away here a few years ago. They showed that when chiropractic patients have been under care for at least, I think it was 5 years, versus those people who are actually in a control group, in other words, they were healthy people, but they did not have chiropractic care. And then cancer patients, they tested that white blood cell activity, and it was twice as strong as you move up the list. Chiropractic patients had twice the response that an average person did, and the average person had twice the response that a cancer patient had. So that's pretty wild. And number 3 is, Medicare's done studies. They actually showed that people who use chiropractic care at least 4 times a year or more versus a control group had 75% less medical care costs. Basically, the cost difference was between $2,500 versus $10,000. They took half as many drugs, and they actually saw doctors 60% less. Now, if you've seen anything about the treatment for cancer, how cheap is that? Yeah, actually, okay, I have some insight on this. One of our patients told me one time, she said, I'm just so thankful this person that they had in their family had gotten cancer. And they said, I'm just thankful they have insurance because if they didn't, the bag they go in every week, they actually do the chemo with them once a week on, costs $9,000 per bag. And they were going to do 10 or 12 rounds of that. So 9,000 times 10 is $90,000. That would buy a very nice car with it, right? That's a lot of money, right? So what we're saying is take care of yourself, guys, and actually you can save a lot of money to do this. So the magic one is this, guys. If you're feeling overwhelmed at this point, there's only one thing you need to do at any given moment. One is you have to decide what is it that I want to do. If you want to lower your risk of all cancers, but specifically breast cancer, pick one of these 10 that you can most easily do. And I'd say pick the one that you're probably not doing at all. So if you're very sedentary, start moving. Get a pedometer. Just see how many steps you take a day. How many steps do you take a day, Ava? What'd you guess? Have you ever won one before? Because your job involves a lot of walking, doesn't it?
Yeah, so walking up and down, I don't know.
Yeah. A good one was about 10 to 12,000 steps if you can get it, right? And if you do get a pretty good clip, that's even better. Okay? Then make the next change. Number 2 is what is the action step with smaller steps to get there? And lastly, what's the timeline you need to do? So like, for example, if you say, I'm going to actually have a good exercise program in place where I'm exercising 3 to 5 times a week for 30 minutes by the end of October, then let's make sure we have a meeting before the end of this month to get that set up for you. Okay, there's a ton of stuff online. There's literally nothing I don't think you can find online, especially from a good source. But there's a lot of garbage out there too. Just make sure you go do it. And actually, guys, any plan you find online or in a book is only as good as what you actually do, right? I think about exercising. I learned about exercising. I want to exercise. I know what the best plan is. My question is, did you do it, right? So let's make sure we actually do those things, and we'll meet with you to do that sort of thing. So again, what's your one thing, guys? What do you want to do in your Magic of One? That's what we want to do. So your responsibility is to implement this one thing that you do in a smart way, and always sharpen the saw, refine your habits. I don't eat the same way I did 10 years ago. I've gotten better at it. I'm getting better at selecting the things that I know when I go to a restaurant, even if it's fast food, that I can identify, oh, that's actually probably a better choice now. Okay? Number 3, remember that life is a slip and check process. You've never failed except when you fail to get up and try again. Okay? It's not about perfection, it's about the direction you're going. Right? So, as they say, even God cannot steer a parked car. If you're moving some direction, we can always turn it and go around. But if you're sitting there just grinding away in park, you're not going to go anywhere. Lastly, pass on what you know. If you come across something that's good or bad, either way, do you let your friends know? Are you that kind of person, right? Let's say you're going home tonight and that we had a huge rain, a bridge had washed out. You know your spouse is behind you in a separate car. Would you call them maybe and say, hey, you know what? Yeah, Stacey's up to sure. I'm just kidding. Yeah. But yeah, you'd say, hey, look, don't come this way. The bridge is out. There's emergency vehicles everywhere here. Go around the other way. Or who's ever found a really good restaurant or a good movie before and told people about it? Have you done that before? Yeah, I would hope so, right? Like good things like that you don't keep to yourself. Well, in the same way, share your success with other people because first of all, it will keep you accountable. Keeping it to yourself is selfish at best and it's apathetic or unethical at worst. Like I think it's like imagine if you had a friend who you saw they were literally digging their grave with their fork. Every meal, right? All highly processed, highly preservative, highly additive, low nutrient foods. And you never told them about it, right? You can do it in a way that's not preachy. Say, hey, do you know, I learned something tonight that actually some of those foods that you're eating right there, or at least eating that way, can actually hasten the process of cancer, right? Now, they may choose not to believe it. That's their choice. They may choose not to act on it. That's their choice. But at least you were the servant and the good ambassador to tell them something they could go to and lead them to a better way, okay? With that said, guys, we are done. I believe that talk. So your marching orders are this. I want you to go through the things you learned tonight and prioritize them. Some you may never do. But some you may say, this is, without question, the most important thing I need to do. Start there. And before you leave tonight, if you actually would like to get a sample of the Juice Plus that I mentioned, we actually have that here. We also actually have samples of that soy drink that I mentioned as well, too. And we are done.
Question.
Yes.
Question from our Facebook audience. What about the vegetables? Are they just fresh?
About frozen vegetables? Yes. Particularly if they were raised the same way. Yep. It's almost, yeah, they're basically the same. Yes.
Right?
That's good.
Awesome.
Yep.